I won millions in the lottery, and my own family still let me drown in debt. I won millions in the lottery, and I decided not to tell anyone. I asked my family for help. It happened on a Thursday night. I was sitting at my kitchen table, half asleep, with a lukewarm cup of coffee and my phone in one hand. The TV in the background droned out the lottery numbers, but my mind was elsewhere. Bills, overdue rent, the broken transmission in my car. Then my ears caught the last two digits. I looked down at my ticket. My heart thudded once, hard. The first number matched, the second, the third. By the fifth number, my chest felt like it was going to burst. And when the final number lined up perfectly with mine, I didn't scream or jump or dance. I froze. My hands shook so hard I almost dropped the ticket. My eyes darted between the numbers and the date over and over, making sure I wasn't imagining it. I had just won millions. But instead of calling someone, I sat there in silence. I didn't want to tell anyone, not yet. A strange thought settled over me like a shadow. What would they do if they thought I had nothing? Who would still show up for me? So I told no one. Not my friends, not my co-workers, not even my family. A week later, life went on like nothing had happened. Except I now carried a secret worth more than my entire net worth times 1,000. But reality still had its claws in me. My rent was late. My car needed a new transmission. I had bills stacked like a leaning tower on my kitchen counter. I decided to use the situation. To see. I called my mother first. I told her things were tight, that I needed some help covering rent until payday. She sighed heavily, the kind of sigh you give when you're tired of someone. "You really need to learn how to manage your money better," she said. "I can't keep bailing you out." I didn't argue. I just said okay and hung up. Next, I called my sister. She laughed. Actually laughed. "Maybe stop buying junk and you wouldn't be in this mess." Then she told me she had her own bills to worry about. Each conversation left a cold pit in my stomach. I wasn't asking for thousands. I wasn't even asking for charity. I just wanted to see if they would stand by me when I was struggling. They didn't. I even called my cousin, the same cousin I once lent money to when his house was about to be repossessed. He said, "Sorry, I'm tapped out," but I could hear the faint sound of music and clinking glasses in the background. The truth was becoming clearer with every call. When they couldn't get something from me, I was nothing to them. I told myself I wouldn't let it hurt, but it did. And then came one last request, small, harmless, the one that would tell me everything I needed to know about who they really were. The request was simple, a small loan to cover my overdue rent. I wasn't asking for a free handout, just a bridge to get me through the month. I called my brother first. He'd just posted pictures of his brand new truck on Facebook, a shiny lifted beast with all the extras. I figured if anyone could spare a few hundred, it would be him. "Sorry," he said without a hint of hesitation. "Can't spare it right now. Things are tight." I stared at the phone, listening to the faint sound of sports commentary in the background. Tight. Sure. Tight enough to afford leather seats, chrome rims, and a brand new sound system, but not tight enough to help your own sister keep a roof over her head. Next was my aunt. She was warm at first, telling me she understood, that times are hard for everyone. Then she said she'd pray for me instead, as if prayers could swipe a debit card or pay the landlord. I bit my tongue and thanked her anyway. That was when something shifted in me. It was like a fog lifted, and I began to see them differently, not as family, not as people who'd have my back through anything, but as collectors. They only measured worth by what they could take from you, not what they could give. I started replaying childhood moments like an old film reel. The Christmas when my brother got a new bike, and I handed him mine after his broke. The time I skipped my own weekend plans to babysit my aunt's kids so she could go on vacation. The late nights I sat by my cousin's hospital bed when he got into that car accident. I'd been there for them, again and again, and not once had I hesitated. The more I thought about it, the more I saw the pattern. I was useful only when I was giving, not when I needed. The moment I asked for something, the warmth in their voices turned to frost. It wasn't just in their words, it was in the way they'd stop calling. How texts would go unanswered, how suddenly they were too busy for dinner. The final shove came at a family dinner. I was already on edge, trying to keep my head down and make it through without bringing up my situation. But halfway through the meal, my cousin leaned back in his chair, smirking. "If you're struggling that bad," he said loudly enough for everyone to hear, "maybe sell something valuable, or just stop whining." A few people laughed. My face burned. I forced a smile, but inside something snapped. That wasn't concern, that was mockery. And it was coming from someone I'd once driven across the state to help move into his apartment. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling. I could feel the anger, cold and steady, replacing the hurt. If they thought I was helpless, if they thought I was a burden, fine. I would give them exactly what they saw, until I was ready to show them the truth. The stage was set. I just needed the perfect moment to pull back the curtain. I called a family meeting, telling them I had something important to discuss. No details, no hints, just enough urgency to make sure they all showed up. When the day came, I dressed the part. Old jeans with frayed hems, a stretched-out sweater, hair pulled back like I hadn't bothered to try. I even skipped makeup so the shadows under my eyes looked real. If they were going to see me as broke and beaten, I would let them. They gathered in my living room. My mother, my brother, my sister, my aunt, a couple of cousins. Some sat on the couch, others stood, arms crossed, already impatient. I took a breath. "I need your help," I said quietly. "It's urgent. If I don't get some money together soon, I could lose my apartment." I told them I would pay them back the moment I could, that this was just to keep me afloat until things turned around. My voice was steady, but I made sure it carried the right tremor, the sound of someone trying not to cry. The silence that followed was heavy, but not with concern, it was calculation. My brother shifted in his chair. "I wish I could, but things are tight." My aunt sighed. "You know I'd help if I could, sweetheart, but I've got bills too." One by one, they each took their turn, polite refusals wrapped in excuses. Then my sister, sitting next to my cousin, leaned toward him and muttered, "She's always in some drama." It was quiet, but not quiet enough. I heard it, and I knew she wanted me to hear it. A few others smirked. My cousin avoided my eyes. I nodded slowly, pretending not to notice, pretending their words didn't land like a blade between my ribs. "I understand," I said softly, my gaze drifting across the room. "I know times are hard." But inside, something was shifting. The pity I'd once felt for their coldness was gone. In its place was something colder, sharper, a resolve that hummed in my chest like a wire pulled taut. They had made it clear their loyalty came with a price tag. Their kindness was for show, for when it made them look good. Strip that away, and all that was left was indifference. We made small talk after that, shallow conversation about TV shows and weather, as if the rejection hadn't just happened. I smiled where I needed to, laughed where I should, and walked them to the door like a gracious host. But the moment the last one left, my smile fell away. The air felt heavier in the empty room, but it was no longer suffocating. Because now I knew. I knew exactly where I stood with them, and exactly how I was going to let them know what they'd thrown away. The reveal would not be petty. It would not be rushed. It would be deliberate, undeniable, and unforgettable. I began planning that night, quietly, patiently, on my terms. And when the day came, they would see me differently, but it wouldn't be in the way they were hoping. A month later, I invited them all again. Same living room, same seats. This time, the atmosphere felt different before I even opened the door. I was dressed in a tailored navy blazer over a crisp blouse, hair freshly cut and styled. Makeup done just enough to make my features sharp. My nails were clean and polished. Everything about me said, put together. They noticed. I saw it in the quick glances they gave each other as they stepped inside. No frayed sweater, no messy bun, no tired eyes. We sat just as before. My mother on the couch, my brother in the armchair, my sister by the window, my aunt and cousins scattered in the dining chairs I'd pulled in. I let the small talk happen for a moment, watching them relax into the idea of another family gathering. Then I leaned forward, hands clasped on my knees. I called you all here because I have something to share. They fell silent, eyes on me. I reached behind the coffee table and pulled out the oversized photo of the check from the lottery commission, the one they'd taken for the press release I'd refused to let be published. I laid it down where everyone could see. Silence hit the room like a thunderclap. I saw my mother's eyes go wide, then blink rapidly as if she wasn't sure she was seeing right. My brother leaned forward, his jaw hanging slightly open. My sister's mouth twitched like she wanted to speak but couldn't find the words. I let them look. Let the truth sink in. I won this months ago, I said calmly. I didn't tell anyone. I wanted to see who would stand by me when I was at my lowest. I paused, meeting each of their eyes in turn. No one did. My mother stammered first. We didn't know. We didn't realize. My brother laughed, too loudly, trying to break the tension. Well, now you can help us out, right? The way he said us made my skin prickle, as if my win automatically belonged to them. I smiled slightly, not unkind, but with an edge. You didn't want to help me when I needed it, so why would I give you anything now? The room shifted. My aunt's lips pressed into a thin line. My sister crossed her arms, looking away. One cousin started tapping his foot against the floor. I could see it in their faces, the scramble to rewrite history, to pretend they hadn't dismissed me, mocked me, brushed me off. But they couldn't undo the past month. They didn't realize I'd already made my decision long before they walked through my door that day. Everything they were about to say, every excuse they were about to make, every plea that might follow, none of it would change a thing. I sat back in my chair, still smiling, and waited for the begging to start. I told them plainly, I will not be giving you a cent. The words dropped into the room like a stone into still water. At first, there was silence. Then the ripples began. My brother's face darkened. You're serious? After everything, we're family. Yes, I said evenly. We are. And when I needed my family, they weren't there. My aunt's voice was sharp. That's not fair. You didn't tell us. I cut her off. I didn't need to. If you loved me, if you cared, you wouldn't have needed an explanation. I came to you vulnerable, asking for help, and every one of you turned me away. The air thickened. Some shouted. My sister's voice rose above the rest, calling me selfish, heartless. My cousin muttered that I was letting money change me. My mother sat in the corner, tears slipping down her cheeks. I didn't flinch. Money hasn't changed me, I said, my voice low but steady. It's shown me who you are. I reminded them of every moment over the past month, the excuses, the dismissals, the laughter when I was struggling. I reminded my brother how he told me he couldn't spare it, while posting pictures of his new truck. I reminded my aunt how she said she'd pray for me, instead of helping me keep a roof over my head. I reminded my sister of the words she whispered to my cousin, always in some drama. No one met my eyes. I have no interest in rewarding that kind of loyalty, I continued. My money will go to people and causes that actually stood by me. To friends who've picked up the phone at 2 a.m., to charities feeding children who've never asked me for anything in return, to strangers who've shown me kindness without knowing a thing about my bank account. My mother's voice broke. We didn't know, sweetheart. You would have helped me if there was a payout, I said, cutting her off gently. But when there wasn't, I was a burden. My brother stood up suddenly, shoving his chair back so hard it scraped across the floor. Fine, keep your money. He stormed out, the door slamming behind him. The others left slowly, faces drawn tight, some muttering under their breath, some avoiding my gaze altogether. My mother was the last to leave, pausing at the doorway like she wanted to say something, but then she just walked out. When the door closed, the silence that followed didn't feel lonely, it felt clean. I sank into my chair, the weight in my chest finally gone. I didn't feel guilty, I didn't feel vindictive, I felt relieved. Weeks later, they started trying again. A sudden text from my sister asking how I'd been, my aunt calling to check in, my brother sending a casual, "hope you're doing well" message. Their warmth felt rehearsed, calculated, the kind you use when you're circling back to a resource. I stayed polite but distant. I never changed my mind, because for the first time in my life I knew exactly where I stood, wealthy in more ways than one.